Hi there, I'm Adam Durant from the Niagara Workforce Planning Board, and in this series of videos we're going to be exploring a deceptively simple question. What happened in 2020? COVID-19 has had and continues to have a serious impact on our local workforce. It has created new challenges for employers and job seekers while also accelerating issues that were already beginning to take shape. Our goal with this series is to help peel back the layers on the data so that everyone can understand how Niagara's labor force has coped with COVID-19. In this talk, we're going to try and understand what happened with local job demand during 2020. So how do we measure job demand? This is always a fun question, and in general, there are two ways we can come up with an answer. There's pros and cons to both methods. The first method is through doing a survey. Now, surveys can be slow and they can be time-consuming, but they often yield very interesting insights. That said, there are only insights that are reflected in that moment, even when we're asking someone to speak about the future. The other way we can come up with an answer to the question of job demand is through data aggregation. This is where we capture online job posts, analyze them, and use that data as a measure of job demand. The pros here are that we can capture where the rubber meets the road in terms of who employers want to hire, and we can produce accurate data up to about an hour ago. The cons are that we can only capture what's in the posting, and not all employers like to post jobs through online job boards. We know from past survey work where 39% of respondents said that online job boards were their most reliable way of recruiting. But in that same survey, 30% of respondents said that word-of-mouth recruiting was their best method. So there's no exact science here, there's only the best data that we have. With that said, let's take a high-level look at how job demand changed between 2019 and 2020. One of our tools reported an estimated 30,500 online job postings in 2019. That same tool reported a decline in job postings in 2020 to about 24,200. This amounts to about a 20% decline in job demand in 2020 compared with the previous year. That's not surprising considering the extent of the spring 2020 lockdowns and the uneven summer that followed. We know from regional employer surveys that employers' primary focus over the summer of 2020 was on maintaining their revenue and attracting back their customers. That same survey told us that respondents were operating at about 60% of their overall capacity, so that's going to have a real impact on their ability to hire. Let's dive in a little deeper and look at where that job demand can be found. Even though job demand was down in Niagara in 2020, the job demand that we could measure followed some fairly typical patterns. About 22% of job demand was for sales and service occupations, 20% was for business, finance, and administration occupations, and another 13% was for trades, transport, and equipment operators. Anybody who watched our What Happened to Employment Sectors in 2020 video will know that these sectors generally mirror where we see the most employment in Niagara, so it makes sense this is where we would see a lot of the job demand. The one point of caution that someone should take from these data is that a low number in terms of job demand doesn't mean there is no job demand in a given sector, and I absolutely cannot stress that enough. Can I get a can't stress that enough graphic? No? I can't? Just get on with the video? Okay. The point here is that we know through survey work and consultations that there is a lot of job demand in Niagara's local manufacturing sector, for example, that doesn't always make it into online job boards. We know that referrals and informal networks are often where some of this job demand manifests. That means that networking, even if it's only through LinkedIn amid a pandemic, is going to help a person find work. So let's take a look at what the landscape for entry-level employment looked like. 2020 reported about 6,500 jobs that required 2 years or less of experience. That's what we generally classify as something that's entry-level, even if there's a variety of educational qualifications within that mix of job postings. Something could be entry-level and require only a high school level of education. At the same time, another job might be entry-level but also require university training. The 6,500 job postings that we see for entry-level work represent about 27% of 2020's total job demand. So even during a pandemic, there were opportunities for employment, albeit less employment than what we would normally expect. It's also noteworthy that the top occupation groups in demand changed between the entry-level jobs and all jobs in demand. Sales and service jobs represent about 23% of job demand, which is a slightly higher proportion than what we saw for all job demand. Likewise, business, finance, and administration occupations remain in the second place slot, but also at a higher proportion. What stands out is that almost 16% of entry-level work were for management occupations. And at this point, you might be asking, how does one go about finding these opportunities? It's all well and good for me to talk about the statistics, but those stats won't help someone find a job. We got you covered there. If you go to our website, nwpb.ca, and click on either our job board or our job map, you'll be able to see real-time job opportunities that exist in Niagara. These are aggregated from across multiple job sites in the region as well as national-level job boards. The job map also has a suite of tools to help you see if a prospective job is on a transit route, near a childcare center, or near a school. These tools and more are free to the public and can be accessed 24 hours a day. So let's sum up a bit. We know that 2020 saw less job demand in Niagara than what could be seen in 2019. And the pattern of that decline in job demand tracks pretty closely to the spring lockdown and the graduated provincial reopening. Sales and service occupations represented the most job demand, which is about what we would expect given the role that sector plays in our local economy. And we also know that just because job demand can't be seen through aggregated data doesn't mean that it's not there. Networking and research can help a person identify job demand that might not make it into online job boards. Thank you so much for watching this video. For more information and the latest labor market numbers, please go to nwpb.ca and explore our data and community resources.